Okay guys, welcome to another video. Today we're gonna be recording the so much requested tier list that I promised to upload during this week. So yeah, let's get started. This will be obviously the final tier list for the year because well, the year is finishing now. There are no more tournaments. So this is my opinion about how strong every SIB is by the end of 2023. So let's start. Um, how do we start? Let's just go in order, and then at the end maybe I do some slight adjustments, right? So China. China is maybe not that popular anymore. In terms of strength, though, I think it's still a good ship. In hybrid maps, well, hybrid, in maps like Holy Island, Baltic, Boulder Bay, maps that involve water fights, it's still one of the best. In land maps, it's struggling a bit. Four Lakes, for instance, it's also a good map for China. So I would say it's a situational pick. I think in land, it's probably on the weaker side unless you manage to get to the late game. In hybrid maps, water maps, it's one of the strongest. So somewhere between here and here, I would say. Let's put it here now, and we'll think later whether this is a proper spot for it or not, right? But yeah, somewhere around here. I don't think it's one of the worst, and it's for sure not S tier. Let's leave it here. Abbasid have fallen in terms of popularity. I feel like they've fallen quite a bit, mostly because their variant CP is now very popular, Ayyubids, and quite good. But I don't think Abbasid is in a bad spot. I think Abbasid still has some good matchups. It's just not that strong anymore against. Like when I think, is there any seed that gets destroyed by Abbasid? I don't think there's a clear one, right? I think for the most part, Abbasid has mostly only balanced matchups. I don't think it's particularly weak against any other seed neither. Not even against Rus, which used to be one of the bad matchup for Abbasid. I don't think it's bad against Delhi. I don't think it's bad against Mali. I don't think it's necessarily too bad against Mongols. So yeah, again, somewhere between here and here, very solid Civ. If you main Abbasid, I don't think you will have very bad matchups, and you won't have very good matchups. It will be the opposite of a roller coaster for you, right? It will be very, very balanced all across the board. I think it's better than China. Um, let's leave it here for now. But again, both tiers are acceptable. We can do some adjustments later on. HRE. HRE, I feel like is in a similar spot to China, but maybe slightly worse. Even though in some maps, such as Prairie, it's probably S tier. Due to the amount of sheep you can get there, combined with the chapel, it's just a very strong combo overall, right? But it's, I would say, slightly worse than China in most hybrid maps. Very close though. But in normal land maps like Arabia, Lipani, and so on, I think it's even slightly worse than China. The late game is obviously worse than China, and securing relics is not that easy at all in the current meta. You have tons of civs that simply beat you to castlage timings or who can deal with your army. So I think HRE is a clear B tier to me. I don't think it's terrible, but yeah, right there. Yeah, B tier for sure. I don't think I will make any adjustment to this later on. Okay, so the next one, English. A long-time favorite now, has fallen a lot in terms of popularity. I don't think English is that bad. Um, but as opposed to China and HRE that really shine in hybrid maps, that's not the case at all for English. At all. It's decent. Like in Four Lakes, it's decent. In Holy Island, it can be good as well. Very matchup dependent. I think English, for instance, is good into Japanese, right? So since Japanese is very common in those maps, English just by default becomes better. Inland map, it has some maps, some matchups where you get away with being very aggressive. Like for instance, against zhu'xi, against Ottomans, against Japanese. But then again, I feel like it's really weak when you get faced like against French, Jeanne d'Arc, Mongols, Rus. So English, B or C. Let's let's put it here for now. We will see later what adjustments we can do. But yeah, no, not in the best spot right now. French next. This is going to hard because French has been one of my favorite ships for the longest time. But I'm just really, I've lost hope. I've lost faith in the French. First of all, their variant ship just seems to be better at everything, right? We have Jeanne d'Arc at home, and this is what you get when you hear that. It's just a worse Jeanne d'Arc at the moment. Like I don't see any spot where French is better than their counterpart, and not only that, but it's just not too good in general. So for French, I think it's probably going to be the only ship down here. It still has some decent matchups. French against the English is fine. French against Delhi is surprisingly fine for French. Like not necessarily very good for French, but quite playable. But everything else just feels really bad. I mean, against Byzantines, maybe it's okay. Against Japanese, maybe it's okay. But the popular ships right now, the popular land ships like Mongol, Rus, Mali, Ottomans, Ayyubids, all seem to be Jeanne d'Arc, all seem to just be very good against French. So yeah, a mix of both. Is counter ships being very popular and them just being in a weak spot overall. In hybrid maps, they are also amongst the weakest. So yeah, really no saving grace for French right now. D tier for sure. The only ship that wasn't picked in the EGC finals, like I, not even myself, I didn't even. I've always liked playing French, even when it was considered weak. I always found some maps where I felt comfortable with it, but right now you're just D tier. It's sad, but it is. It is what it is, right? Then again, Mongols. We just placed a D tier, and now we're going with a clear S tier to me. Some of the hybrid maps right now, like Rocky River, Canal, Mongol is just one of the best, if not the best. Land maps, Mongol is also doing great, I believe. Mongol trade still very good. Mongol Tower Rush is very strong. Also, some of the newer maps have shorter distances, like Gorge or Cliffside. So the outpost rush from Mongols just feels stronger. If the map is very big and you cannot go for that, you can always trade, right, and put pressure with Keshiks. So very versatile right now, very strong in hybrid, very strong in land. S tier and maybe even the strongest overall, I would argue. It still has some matchups that are not that clear. Well, does it? Like I'm thinking now, is like all of these. Let's say in Arabia, which of all these ships is good against Mongols? Which ship is favored against Mongols? Ottomans maybe, but I'm not completely sure. I don't think Rus is good into Mongols anymore. I think that's a balanced one, or even maybe slightly better for Mongols. So yeah, really Mongols is in a great spot right now. Yeah, I think S tier. I think most of the matchups I would say Mongol is slightly favored, and then it has some matchups where they are just. I'm not going to say a free win, but they are very favored, like Mongol against French, Mongol against English. Mongol against Delhi, I also believe it's quite good for Mongols. Mongol against Mali can be good, but that's debatable. So yeah, S tier, right? No question about this. Rus. Uh, how is Rus right now? I don't think the militia are that strong anymore. But still, you can get away with 2TC fast castle very easily with Rus, right? And fast castling is also an extra layer to your boom economy with the gold landmark. Then you can get into the relic, into getting relics and so on. Your monks are very fast, so even if you don't have that much army, they can outrun a lot of units. So I'm going to go with S tier for Rus. It's still the king of hybrid maps, I would say, like Baltic, Holy Island, Boulder Bay. Arguably Four Lakes, although that last one is not so clear. Rus is the strongest ship there. It doesn't have that many weak matchups. Like Rus into Mongols is not great, but it's fine. But everything else, Rus is happy to play, right? Rus against Sushi is probably not that good for Rus. That's maybe the worst matchup for the ship. But it's still S tier to me. They are very well rounded, a lot of very flexible. You can also play aggressive if you want to with feudal knights and so on. So I don't see how Rus is not S tier right now. Eh, maybe Rus against China is not that good neither, but still fine. Also, when the counters are not popular, the ship just becomes better, right? Like who plays China in Dry Arabia nowadays? Delhi. Delhi is one of my favorite ones. In terms of strength, like objective strength, it's like hybrid maps. It's bad. Well, like Baltic, Holy Island, I think it's bad. Boulder Bay, it's surprisingly good in for Delhi. Land maps, I think it's good, but I don't think it's great, right? Like I still think it loses to Mongols, Rus. Abbasid, it's probably slightly favored against Delhi. Like nothing massive. It's very playable from both sides, but I would give a slight edge to Abbasid, right? Then it's Delhi. I think is really bad into Jeanne d'Arc. I think it's really bad into zhu'xi. Against Mali and Ottomans, you will have mixed opinions on this. Even amongst top players, it's these are the few matchups where you will have a very different opinions. Where I think some pro players believe Delhi is bad into Ottomans. I believe that matchup is good for Delhi. And the same with Mali, you will get mixed opinions. So where do we place this? I think it's going to be A tier, but I think worse than Abbasid. Mm, very close though. Let's go like this though. Let's make again at the very end. I will make some slight adjustments if something feels really wrong. But right now, this would be it for me. So next, Mali. Mali has been a very strong ship for a while, right? It's nerfed a few times. I don't think it's that strong anymore. I mean, it's among the strongest, but I don't think it's a clear S tier anymore as it used to be. It has some bad matchups. I think Mali against Soto is hard for Mali. Mali against these two is also hard for Mali. Mali against Delhi, I'm of the opinion that it's slightly bad for Mali, but some people will argue the opposite. Mali against Abbasid, it's bad for Mali. Um, so where do we place Mali? I think it's a clear A tier. The question is where. Even Mali against China, Mali against HRE are not clear at all to me. Let's go with this. Let's think about this later. Either or. Well, let's put it here for now. Right. Also, Mali late game is a bit underwhelming. Yeah, let's leave it there. I don't think it's a B tier, but I don't think it should. Like here for sure not. It's either one of these two spots, but I'm leaning more towards this one. So the next one, Ottomans. Where do we place Ottomans? Ottomans, I would say it's bad in hybrid maps. Well, again, hybrid maps. Like Ottoman is very playable in Canal, in Rocky River, but in Boulder Bay, in Baltic, this kind of maps, Ottoman struggles a lot. Then again, I'm gonna focus more on land maps when doing the whole thing. In land maps, I believe Ottoman is probably the king of late game. Once you get your setup with the 5 military schools, with the great bombard production, and you get your 200 supply of Sipahi, Janissaries, Mehters, and great bombards, Ottoman is really hard to deal with. Even if in feudal age they are also quite good, right? You can play very aggressive if you want to, and then in castle age, I feel that's where maybe they struggle the most. But to compensate and not die to all-ins, they have this vizier point with the 10 Janissaries, right? So overall, a very well-rounded ship. What bad matchups does Ottoman have? It's hard to say. Maybe like in late game, maybe China and Sushi can compete, but I still think Ottoman is great there. Ottoman against Delhi, I think it's bad for Ottomans because it's hard in feudal, I think, but you will get mixed opinions on that, so who knows. Otto against Mongols, Ottoman is one of the ships that can deal with Mongols, right? And same with Rus. So I think Ottoman is. I will go with S tier. If we take into account hybrid maps, and it's still S tier because of how it is in land, but worse than Rus. But since this is mostly only land, I'm gonna place Ottomans here. I think Ottoman is a very well-rounded and very strong ship. Very few, if any, bad matchups, and if you get to the late game, it's just very strong. That's my opinion. So yeah, it's you can play with slightly less villagers than most ships, so your army is bigger, right? And it's also a very strong army. You can play with less villagers because of the military schools, of course. You don't need as many resources. So yeah, let's place it here. I think this is too much. I still give Mongols the slight edge, but in general, but yeah, S tier, S tier for sure. Ayyubids. So Ayyubids for a while were the strongest ship in the game, right? With their Gamba thing. That doesn't give you villagers anymore, so it's been nerfed. They also got a nerf in their age up timings. But that being said, I still believe Ayyubid is one of the strongest ships. Even in water maps, like even in maps like Thickets, Holy Island, it's still very good because you can get to feudal for a cheaper price and faster, so you put pressure, right? In land maps, it's super strong and very flexible. You can age up with the villager wings and you just get the eco lead. You can age up with the uh, what's it called? The camel production, and it's also very good. Then you can also aim for very fast castle, fast castle timings with your cheaper age ups. So I will put this on S tier. Mm, where exactly? It's rather hard. I don't think it belongs here. I don't think it belongs here. So it's somewhere between here and here. Let's go with. Let's put this here. We can think about this later, right? But so far, let's leave it there. So the next one, Byzantines. Okay, in hybrid maps, Byzantines is a 0, so let's not even get into that. In land maps, it's not as bad as we all used to believe. Apparently, their army is quite powerful, right? Once you get to your castlate, an imperial with your limitane and your guards and so on, I find it can be quite strong. But their feudal is really weak. Getting there is really hard, and even if you get to late game, I don't know to what extent they can still compete with the top late game ships, right? Like China, Sushi, Otto, and so on. So I think this belongs in C tier. Let's put it here. Yeah, I think a weak C tier. Yeah, also, if you want to take into account how bad they are in hybrid maps and so on, yeah, I still believe it's overall stronger than French. But that has more to do with how bad French is right now than not with Ottomans being necessarily too good. But yeah, let's leave it here now. If they, but this is a tricky one. I feel like if they get even just a slight buff to their economy, they can very easily jump to A, or I mean not S, but maybe A. But as it is right now, 25 December, Christmas Day, let's leave them here. So the Japanese, they seem to be quite powerful in some maps like Canal, Four Lakes, these type of scenarios where you can make use of your cheaper fishing boats production, and you can make good use of the shinobi. Japanese seems to be quite good there. Their late game, I also believe, is very solid. Once you, if they can get their raids going in late game, it's really hard to deal with them. And in general, their infantry composition in late game is strong. But other than that, in let's say like a Dry Arabia setup or something, I haven't been impressed with Japanese. They are not bad by any means, and but they seem to struggle a bit there. Like if you ask me, name two good matchups for Japanese in Dry Arabia, I think I would have a hard time naming two. Right. So just because they are very good in Canal and so on and Four Lakes, I'm gonna put them in B tier. And also their day game is powerful. So let's leave them here, I think. Like I don't think I can say Japan is in a worse spot than China and HRE, but I don't think they belong here at all, right? So B tier, that's going to be it. Jeanne d'Arc, okay, the most hated ship in the game. I feel like they've taken over English and they've earned their new title. Where does Jeanne d'Arc belong in terms of strength? So let's not take into account like again Boulder Bay and all these, right? Let's just take into account like the maps like hybrid like Canal, Rocky River, and then the land maps. I think in land maps it's very powerful. It has some ships where maybe it's not that good into like Ottomans, Mongols depending on the spawn. Ayyubids, probably Ayyubids is reasonably good against Jeanne d'Arc. The matchup against Rus is close, I think. It's hard to say. Jeanne d'Arc is surprisingly okay into Mali, for instance, which is an unplayable matchup as friends. Mali just doesn't have a clear way to kill Jeanne d'Arc later in the game. Also, the economy buff from Jeanne d'Arc, the cheaper villager production and cheaper knight production with her buff, is very good into matchups where you usually run out of food as friends, right? Like I would against Mali, for instance, I would prefer a million times having cheaper production over more villagers, right? Because being forced into a farm transition early in this matchup is criminal. So where do we place Jeanne d'Arc? I think it's S tier, but I think it's on the lower end of S tier. So I would place it either here or here. It's a close one. It's a close one. Let's put it here for now. Right? We can think about it later, but let's leave it there. Order of the Dragon. This is probably the most unique ship in the game. But I think right now it's just not working. For the most part, I think they're weak. Like if you ask me name one good matchup for Order of the Dragon, I have a hard time coming up with one if there's one at all. So I think this belongs with French in D tier. Now, I'm even gonna go as far as saying this is even worse than French overall, because French still has some decent matchups, like French against English. I don't mind playing. French against Delhi, I don't mind playing. But if you ask me to play Order of the Dragon right now, and I can choose my opponent's ship, I think I would go for the Order of the Dragon mirror matchup, right? So that says enough of my opinion on the ship. Um, Maybe some people have a slightly better opinion. Like maybe some people would place it here or here. I don't think anyone goes any higher than C tier with Order of the Dragon. For me, it's going to be the worst ship in the game at this point in time. Yeah. And then Sushi. Um, I think Sushi is one of the strongest ships in the game. They are not bad in water maps, but let's not get into that now. In hybrid maps, I think they are playable, not the strongest, like Canal, Rocky River. They don't excel there. But then land maps like Cliffside, Hill and Dale, it's S plus tier for sure, and even regular land maps like Arabia, Lipani, and so on, they are very good. So they are S tier for me. We're in the S tier ranking though. Mm, I'm gonna place them here. I think they are really powerful. Once they get a bit more explored and people get better at defending with them, you can just get away. So I feel like so easily with the 3TC setup, and then your granary farm transition is so smooth. They have to be S tier for sure. Yeah, now I'm noticing there's a lot of S tier here. But I just believe the gap between these ships and these ones, and even these ones, is really big. Uh, Rus, no, it just feels wrong not placing it on S tier. Like I think there's a gap between Rus and these three. So this is going. Let's think a bit, but I don't think I change much here. Mm, this seems very close. Just gonna leave Ayyubid still slightly better. It's just more flexible. Sushi, I don't think the fast castle approach has any merits. I think that's not a good way to play. So the ship itself is not very flexible. But I just think the regular way of playing it is very good. And I think it's, again, once people get a bit more refined with defending, with dealing with raids in case you're playing Jeanne d'Arc and so on, with walling properly, I just have the feeling this is a very good one. Hmm, what about the rest? Is there anything to change here? Is maybe this could be swapped, but not for me. So yeah, overall, I think I'm not making any changes. You may argue this is a lot of S tier, but I do believe there's a gap between these six and these three, and then these three and these three, and then these and these and these and these. I just believe there's a gap between them. So yeah, that's going to be my tier list. So let me know what's your opinion in the comments. What would you change? What you wouldn't change? Hope you enjoyed the whole thought process, and just see you next time. Have a good one. Bye bye.